Quarter the round, Joe, stop talking. Consider it done. Right, so here we go. This is how I would quarter it. I'd pick the wood up, I'd put it on the stump, or I'd try and split as much of it in the pile as I can. Up, down. Simple. Hey there, Forest family. You're very welcome back to the channel. It's good to see you again. And if this is your first time here, I'm Joe Price, wilderness skills instructor and product developer. And behind a stack of rounds over there is Ida Olsen. I can barely see her. She likes to build herself these little nests that she can hide behind. But I'm out here today in the beautiful farmland where we live to show you my Adler collection. It has been a very requested video from the people who watch the channel because Adler, although a very old company, 100 years old, actually 105 now, since last year, been making axes in Germany since 1919, still made there, start to finish, top to toe, forged and handles in the beautiful Germany there. I recommend going and checking out the website, and as always I will leave gallons of links below so you can find out more details. This is not a lesson, it's just a viewer answer question type of video. So me and Ida thought it would be fun to bring you out here to the wood pile, split some rounds, take some downs, and of course give some pro tips along the way. All disclaimers aside now, let's get into swinging some axes. First off, the range that I have is I have the super splitter, which is basically a splitting maul. I have the Yankee Axe, which is a felling axe. I have the mini splitter, which I absolutely love. It's my most used one that I got. And then I got the Yankee Hatchet. You may have noticed a couple of the Yankee terminologies in there. It's just because that these come from the beautiful American tradition of forestry and tree felling and the whole American timber industry in general. And that is where I gravitate most to when it comes to axes. I think the American lineage when it comes to axes is one of my most favorites. It fits my hands the best. It's aesthetically the one that I gravitate towards. So you will find an awful lot of American forestry inspired axes in my collection, but they perform about the same. I will run through some light specs as I use the axes, but then again, this is not a product review video. It's just showing you the range and how they work. So first off up, when I step out to the wood pile, maybe in January or February, because myself and Ida do live in the boreal forests and the winters get down to, what would you say, baby? Somewhere between -20, -30. Yeah, -25. So from January, basically up until now, I'm splitting wood 3 to 4 hours a day when I am at home. And that's not so often these days as I do travel around the show. So I have to work double hard when I am at home splitting. And having to work all year round splitting wood is a difference to people who may head out into the deep forest. As I said, I am a wilderness skills instructor, so I do teach these techniques. When you head out into the deep forest, you want to always be increasing safety. I mean, you should be safe all the time, but you want to take extra cautions with safety. And you're going to be splitting wood for maybe an hour, even in winter conditions, maybe 2 hours kind of tops, and you're just kind of going to want to keep a fire going. However, that being said, professionals, arborists, and so on, people who work in the forest industry and people like myself and Ida who actually depend on wood to keep our cabin warm and us alive basically during the winter time, I'm splitting for 4 to 5, 6 hours a day, and those techniques and those tools are different, and that's why I like the Adler range. They do offer that. They also are very available. You can get Adler axes on both sides of the pond. Shops do stock them a lot, so they're not so, you know, they're a lot more easily available for a utility axe. If I happen to split this handle down, there's handles available immediately on different websites, and that's also what I like about Adler as well. For the axes that I use all day, every day, over and over again, I don't carry around hard to find, super exclusive axes. I keep them for when I'm tipping about in the woods. I am an axe collector. So for my utility axes, which is a section of axes in and of itself, you have utility axes, you got fire specific building axes, and then you got crafting axes. And it's important to make that difference when you see people making axe videos. These are my utility axes, and Adler's has been the one that I've gravitated to towards that. So that being said, we can get into chopping, but before I start chopping, I normally tell Ida that I'm going outside to do a bit of wood splitting, but she happens to be here today. Ida, I'm going to split some wood. It's all right. And also as well, if you're in the forest, you should do that too. If you're going to go out into the woods, you should tell people where you're going to be and if you're going to be using an axe specifically. Now, when I'm in the yard or when I'm in the forest, accidents do happen. You can be careless about the place. So I always have a file with me. This is a small metal file, especially for the splitting mauls, because I am not so careful with them. I will swing the splitting mauls because the fastest way to split rounds is on the ground or like in a pile like you see here. You know, don't go screaming at me, bushcrafters. And also shout out to my Australian brothers and my people down there. I understand that I am in the boreals. I have birch, I have alder, I have pine. I'm in the boreals. I understand that these are not your super hard concrete Australian wood that's made of like scorpions and nightmares that you guys have to deal with. So major respect to you guys, but this is what I work with and this is what I do. So it's very easy to split rounds in the pile. You know, you want to save your back. So rather than, like I said, if I was in the woods deep on a canoe trip, it would be completely different. But 4 hours of wood splitting a day, I am not going to take every round, place it on the ground, do what I got to do. Also, when you're splitting rounds, you want the stump as low to the ground as possible to use as much momentum in that axe as you have. If you don't feel so safe splitting wood like I do, where I work on a cross stance and I would swing down, open your legs up and sit into it, and then you'll slowly build up that confidence working around the wood pile. But that's why I bring my file, because eventually my axe is going to go into the ground. I know the soil here, this topsoil in Sweden is absolutely beautiful. There's very little stones in it, but there's always one of those cheeky boys hanging around in there ready to take a chip out of your favorite axe. So I bring a file, a Lomachim over there. I also bring a puck. This is just to touch up my axes before I start. Now, I have touched these up before I started filming the video, but I'll take my axes out because maybe it's been 4 hours chopping. I'm tired. I just want to go in, eat some of the lovely Edith's carbonara and go to bed. But maybe that's not always the case when I come back out then and there's a chip in my axe that I didn't realize, and I'll just take it and hone it up. Not so much for the splitting maul, but for the Yankee Axe or my felling axe, which has a really deep bite on it, and I also use it as a pickaroon for taking logs out of the stack. I'll just give it a little touch up with my puck. Whoop. And most importantly, boys and girls, is a first aid kit. I always carry a first aid kit on me, even if I am only in the yard. Because maybe it is working with her headphones on, maybe your partner is in the bathroom, in the shower, taking a bath, doing whatever, and you've taken an axe, and most of the time you're going to cut a finger. Maybe you've kind of cut your leg and you've gone through it, and you just need something immediately until you can get into the house or away from where you are. Also doubly important in the woods, I would match this with a tourniquet and then you're good to go. So I have my puck for when I start, my file for if I make some mistakes and I need to fix them before I go in, and a first aid kit is always a must. And always tell your partner or whoever you may be around what you're going to do with your axe when you're going. Right, now that all that kind of boring exits are here, but also very important information is out of the way, I am now going to split some rounds. So the first off, I'll come out and I'll take my super splitter, you know, 2.8 kilos of pure German, I nearly swore there, 2.8 kilos of pure German wood splitting engineering. This thing is an absolute beast. And if you are splitting rounds like I am, with like say, for example, this year we took down close to 16 trees. I say close because one is still in the yard left to be processed, but we processed 13 out of those trees down into rounds like you see here. And these axes is what makes life different. Now, of course, if you have machinery, that's fine, but we don't like to use machinery at our property. Rounds like these are super old. I'm working with fresh rounds at home, but this is the axe I use to make life absolutely easy for me. Yes, you can go out and buy some machines and stuff like that, but we don't have machines at our property. We like to live as close to natural as we can. And also, this is a gym session for myself. And on some days, the guys and girls out there may agree, a therapy session. So the round that I'm going to split today, I have a couple here with me, but this is just a birch round. And what I'll tend to do is kick it out, give myself a bit of space, and I'll also read the round. Reading the round is very simple. I'll just take a quick look at it, make sure there's no branches, make sure there's no knots, make sure there's no nothing. I'll also make sure that the workspace is safe. And I'll do an example of splitting a round in a wood pile in a moment, but this is where I have it. I am not afraid of this axe going into the ground. If you're going to start splitting like this, I can understand in a deep nature bushcraft scenario, you may be, you don't want to be repairing your edge every time you're out. But usually if you're splitting rounds like this, you're close to a home, you're close to a cabin, you may be in a school or something along those lines. So splitting on the ground is totally fine, in my humble opinion, especially with a splitting maul. Now with splitters, they tend to bounce. They don't want to bite. And what's bite, Joe, I hear you ask? Well, that's a quick one to explain. So this is the Yankee Axe. And as you see, if I drive this into a stump, that's going to stick in there a good inch or 2 inches. What you want in a Yankee Axe or a felling axe. Whereas this guy here, the jaws on this are super thick to drive that wood apart, especially when you're splitting rounds. And it will tend to bounce. You know, it won't bite so deeply, especially if you're hitting those denser woods. Like some of the pine here is pretty dry, but maybe when you take pine down first, it can contain an awful lot of moisture. And unless you swing this as hard as you can, it's not going to go. And a great way to tell that wood is ready to split is it will start to develop a crack right in the center of the wood. It's not completely dry, but that's when it's kind of letting you know, hey, Joe, drive it into me. You know what I mean? And that's what you kind of do. So are we all in shot?
Yeah, all is good.
All is good. So there we go. So you can choose whatever techniques you want. I have videos out there on axe techniques and I teach them all the time, but this is just kind of a fast and loose one to show you. So when I'm splitting the round, I'll try and take a center. Maybe sometimes I'll take a corner. But the great thing about birch, especially Scandinavian birch, is it has such thick bark. It's just like a little waistcoat on the round. So if you get lucky and you split it in the middle, it will kind of hold itself together and allow you to work around the round. So here we go. Come up, nice wide stance. Again, you want the axe to go into the stump, not you. As you can see, I'm kind of taking the arc of the travel. Sometimes I'll do a sledgehammer stance where I'll put my knee in front of me. And if I need more momentum, I will come up and over. But that takes a bit of time to learn how to do that. We'll stick with the safe one. So I'll kind of pick where I want to be. And there we go. And this is why you don't want a splitting maul to bite, because it's so easy to get a splitting maul out of a round. And they are going to get stuck. That felling axe will break your back if you're trying to split rounds with it and trying to constantly unstick it. So now I've got my line, kind of where I want to be. And what I'm going to do is travel along that line. You know, you can drive it in a second time, but I'll come down a little bit further. And there we go. We're starting to develop our beautiful crack in the round, as you see. And we just give it maybe, one more hit, and that should send it on its way. There we go. I have that effect on all women. And that's why that overstrike collar is there, because you're going to do that, working on the round back and forth. Now you can get fancy and work your way around the round when you're making these, but I'm lazy. So I'll split one more round. There we go. Always leave your axe next to a stump. I see people with splitting mauls all the time, and they try and drive it into a stump and it bounces. So this is Adler, and I absolutely love splitting Adler. It's so straight grained, it splits really easy, and this is what you learn over time. I know the different type of woods in the boreal forest. I know pine needs to be, you need to beat pine like it owes you money to try and split it. Birch, somewhere in the middle, but it has that little jacket on it, so you need to have that bit extra force. Alder, very thin jacket on it, very straight grained wood. You only have to look at it. In fact, you could martial arts chop it in half if you happen to feel that particular way about it. So you have to adjust your strength in your swing. But alder and pine contain a lot of water. The tree itself is known for having wet feet. Alder likes to grow in very moist soils. So as you can see here, I will have a small wedge on me all the time. I harken back to my days of working on the power lines. But if you are splitting in piles like this, especially something like the felling axe, can tend to get stuck in something that's incredibly knotty. But I very rarely have to use it. But when I do have to use it, I am glad it's there. It's just a small splitting wedge. Right. That being said, now I'm going to do things in exactly the same way. I'm going to walk around the round, make sure there's no knots and anything else. Real quick inspection of it, make sure my work area is safe, and then I split away. Okay, creating my line, and there we go, done. And as you can see, I don't really mind, and we can do a bit of an edge inspection. If my edge goes into the ground, it is a splitter. That is the way I look at it, and I can easily touch this up as I go along. It has a small little chip in here, but that's actually my own fault from when I was putting the axe down in the sheath. Instead of putting the axe down on its side, you know, I am human too. I totally forgotten, my muscle memory kicked in, and I put the axe down like this and I chopped through my sheath. You know, so that's where that chip comes from. Again, I will leave this here. Take another piece of Adler. Boosh. And have it there. Okay. Again, much smaller. Walking around. Having a look. Up. Down. Simple. Now, if you wanted to split around in the pile and not have to drag it out and stuff like that, as you can see, there's plenty of safe working areas within here. If I wanted to split this one, for example, I would come down like this, split it like that. If this guy was smaller, I could come down, split him like this. I have plenty of stops. And you can see that's kind of how I would work that particular pile. That is how I use my splitter. I'm going to get him out of the road. We leave him over there. He fell a bit. I could tell. My axes have personalities. I don't know about you guys, but I anthropomorphize absolutely everything. And that super splitter is like a big sumo wrestler. It just doesn't like to do what it's told. I have to wield it into place and do what it needs to do. So after I've split down,
Like you.
like me, thank you very much. Right, the pride. But anyway, next I will step on to my felling axe or my Yankee axe to split down my half size rounds. I've now taken, these are basically halved rounds, and I want to quarter them. So you can either quarter them on the ground, but I actually don't like to do that. I always wear steel-toed boots when I'm out working in the yard, and I see people do an awful lot of, let's just say, the axe world is full of techniques we can agree to disagree on, okay? This is a very fine edge on here. This one is actually pretty sharp. And this is the one that I actually have to repair the most because I like to keep this sharp for that bite. For example, let's say this guy here. I want to bring him out of the pile. Well, I actually split him because he's dead. But then I can use my axe as a pickaroon and take it out of the pile as I need to. So that's why I like to keep this one particularly sharp. Now this is an 800mm long axe. Longer the axe, the safer the axe, so use it safely. There is this technique where people swing down and go into it. I'm 6'2". I personally don't like this technique, steel-toed boots and all, just because it tends to bring things down. You can contact the ground. You have to be pretty precise. I personally have to move, and I don't like changing my body dynamics all the time. Then I see ones that are off to the side. I can totally understand. But using half-size axes in positions like this, swinging in like so, it just tends to skew the center of gravity off. If it's the only technique you have, that's totally fine. I'm not here to agree or disagree with people. I'm saying what works for me. At 6'2", with an 800mm axe, this is just showing my whole center of gravity, moving it out here, and I'm having to cock elbows and swing things. There's just no point. Pick it up, find a different place to do it. So when it comes to swinging like this, I will either put it up on my stump if I have to, or if I'm in the pile, like so, we make a little faux pile here. There we go. This is Joe's little imaginary wood pile, and I have it there like so. So if I'm working in the pile, I'll just adapt my techniques in my working space. You can split here, no problem. You have a stop behind here, you've got stops in front of you, and I'll just come down and I'll just split it there. Simple as. Plenty safe. You can see where the stoppage came into play there. And then now I got another one. He's stuck in there. I can come over here. And there you go. He's split. Easy game. I'll do it again. Up she goes. Down she goes. Requires a bit of precision, but you got an awful lot of stuff in the road before you go, and it saves an awful lot of hassle of having to swing like so. Again, great if you're out in the woods. But up on the stump, if I must be, I'll put it towards the back. And stumps, I prefer higher ones, but when I'm splitting these kind of things, I use lower ones when I'm making my quarters. I'll keep it at the back of the stump. The stump, I think personally, should be about as low to the ground as possible. So again, you can take advantage of that full, fast head speed that comes with axes. So I place it towards the back for every reason. If it slips, you want to put as much stuff in the road as you can. And that's why working in piles, although may seem kind of counterintuitive to those of us who've learned axe skills out in the woods for reasons, for very good reasons. Again, I want to iterate, the skills that you use far away from home are just as important as the skills that you would use to save your back muscles during times like this. And those safety techniques still apply. So I want to bring it down and have as much stuff in the road as possible before it hits me. Now, there's a lot of stuff on the internet about throwing the axe head off before it goes into the wood. Absolutely great if you want to practice that with a hatchet. There's no real need. I would rather, like you could be chopping wood like me, doing 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, even up to 100 repetitions of splitting wood on a stump. And accidents happen with complexity, or you want to remove as much complexity from it as possible. So it's just as easy to just tell people and just to constantly drive through the stump and into the stump. One of the main reasons I see people saying that you throw the axe head off, and that's very hard to do if you're swinging something that's 800 mil long and a couple of kilos in weight. I haven't even got the strength in my wrist to do that. Fair play to you if you do too. But having to swing it off over the course of 4 or 5 hours, well, best of luck to those wrists. And when I ask why, most people say it's because putting your axe edge into a stump will dull it. That's not going to happen. It's designed to go into wood. It's C60 on this, C45 steel on that. So you're telling me that doing this is going to dull my axe. But chopping and splitting and throwing the axe head off isn't going to dull my axe. It's just, it doesn't work with me. Now, I can totally understand if you're in the forest, and the worst thing that you can do, and I know because it's happened to me, is those mossy covered stumps or stumps that have detritus on it. Like this guy here, he's full of stones, he's full of muck, he's obviously being turned over to dry out in the sun. That'll dull any axe. But if you have a chopping stump at home that you take care of, keep clean, or you have a stump in a forest that is just after being freshly felled, you swing your axe into that bad boy all day long, and it's not going to dull any more than you can. C60, if you treat it well, has about 100 swings in it, or about 56 to 80 hours of swinging before you get real dull. But then that's what your puck is there for. Just take your puck out, give it a quick lick up and down, wish, 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 and get back at it. You can only imagine if people back in the days of the beautiful forestry industry around the world, if swinging their axes into trees, they had to throw their wrists off every time, and then also were afraid of dulling their axe. Don't be afraid to dull your axe. Learn to sharpen it. Quarter the round, Joe. Stop talking. Consider it done. Right, so here we go. This is how I would quarter it. I'd pick the wood up. I'd put it on the stump, or I'd try and split as much of it in the pile as I can. Up, down. Simple. And that's what I mean about felling axes. They will bite. They bite so deep. And that's what I like about them. One, because they will split wood, but also it's so safe. Once I drive my axe through that wood, it is going to stop here. I can let go of it. It can slip. Even if I sprain my wrist, it will stay stuck in the wood. And I like that. I like that. I'll quarter one more. In the word of axes, move the wood twice, swing the axe once. Here we go. Okay, that didn't split. Now, I'm going to try and get my felling axe out of here. Maybe I need my wedge, and that's what it's for. Maybe I don't. I can try to give it a few taps. And there she goes. She's way out. Up and down. Again, there's loads of ways when out in the woods if you don't have a wedge. One of the more popular ones is taking the wood. Do I have one here? No. Is when your axe gets stuck, is taking the wood, bringing it around off your body and swinging it down and letting the weight carry on. That is great. It can loosen your axe heads over time. I use that technique all the time, but it can be a bit dangerous. If you don't have to do it, don't do it. You don't know the weight in the rounds. Oftentimes, especially with a very thin head, like what's on my Yankee Axe, if I bring it around with enough momentum, sometimes the wood just falls off. Sometimes you put it on your shoulder, and as you've seen from that slight little tap I've given it, sometimes you can put it on your shoulder, and I have seen this happen at classes in the woods. You put it on your shoulder to rest before you kick it down, the axe slides out, and that axe edge is now traveling up and down your body. It's more of a last-ditch resort, a good technique to know, but not something that I will always do. So we try again. There we go. Second time round, done. And again, I like burying my axe in the stump because I can just let go of it, walk around, and it allows me to work a bit faster.
Can I try something?
Yeah, of course.
So we can use me for demonstration.
You're more than welcome to, yeah. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Split, but...
To that.
Okay, thanks.
It did. It did indeed. I'm going to finish splitting that round if that's all right.
Yeah.
There we go. Unfortunately, since I got my axes, I am just happy to get out and chop in the wood pile. Like I said, it's the gym and it's also a therapy session. Produces 50% more testosterone than watching football on the couch as well. Pro tip. So, after I have quartered my rounds, it gives me time to contemplate on what I want to do. Do I want to just put the quarters into the shed? Like you see, these are rounds. Well, these are just sawed off branches, but at home. Do I want to put the rounds quartered into the shed, or do I want to take the quarters down a bit more? And if I want to take the quarters down a bit more, I can use the felling axe, but it starts to get very tiresome on the back. I can use it in the wood pile, like I said, like so. Come in, do those swingy down techniques. Fine. But for the sake of this video, I want to use these quarters to show you, because this is kind of what you would be using in the woods for heavy firewood. If you have to use big rounds like I have, you should just saw it and put it on the fire and process it up. But this is about what you're working with most of the time in the forest, especially in the winter here in the boreals, for keeping yourself warm for several hours. So when I'm out in the woods, and now you'll see some woods techniques, I will use the super splitter. I'm going to bring this up for a closer look. There you go. You can see it there. So basically it is my splitter. It has all that power of a splitter, but just in a half-size package. You got these super thick jaws on you, or you got the super thick jaws on it. An overstrike collar here too, for when you're splitting down. But small axes require smaller things. There's smaller techniques and smaller swings. I just made a poem there, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, happy days.
Typical me.
Typical me. So what you can do is get down on the ground, like so, on a smaller stump, and you can swing in like this. Again, I'm not trying to throw this axe head off. This is small enough that you can, but you need to get to the bottom of the jaws. So I will place myself on a stump here, and then just to demonstrate what it's like in the woods, help them up, and this will blow through and like that. I want to split some birch, some gnarly birch with some knots in it, to show people why I like to carry the splitter, or the mini splitter, most. There you go. I get back down on my knees. There you go. It is such a good axe for having around camp. And like I said at the start of the videos, you have utility axes, fire specific axes, crafting axes, exclusive axes. There is different axes for different things. This, to me, would be a utility axe that would kind of cross over into a bit of fire prep. Because of its size, this isn't so hard to carry into the bush. And you can split nice big thick rounds or quarters all day long. Now, that's kind of basically where I would put stuff into the woodshed. These smaller pieces are about nice to stack, having the wood pile. Let them dry out, air can get in, and I've removed the little jacket, which helps trap moisture in there. But let's just say now, I've got my wood in the shed. When my shed is about full, then I like to split stuff down to kindling, or like that, make kindling in the forest, and these are the size axes that I like to use. But again, there's techniques. And one of the techniques I use, and all these are kind of stump specific techniques. I'm at home doing this. This is how I work my wood piles. Also showing you how and why I use my axes. But now I want to find a sixth finger, or as some people call it, a sissy finger. I'm a man. So I like to find one of those things. And basically what it is a stick. It's a very fancy name for a stick, because these hatchets are naturally smaller. They haven't got so much safety in them like the bigger axes. Great, and this is where your bushcraft techniques come into play. Sitting on the ground, splitting on stumps like so, coming in over the top end like that. Bushcraft techniques are absolutely important when splitting wood, but they are great techniques for when you're working on a more micro scale and on a macro scale like so. And I see an awful lot of people arguing on the internet on that. I just wanted to put in that description. I wanted to fight the corner of my arborist friends and my arborist colleagues, and also the guys down in Australia, and also stick up for the bushcrafters too. I find that when those waters mix, it can be very kind of sandy in the gears. The both worlds, all axes, there's so much stuff that you do with axes. The bushcraft techniques are great for when they are on a scale like this, or when you're off deep in the woods and safety is the utmost priority. You don't want to be chopping fingers off when you're so far away. Or also respecting the fact that there is people who do this as a job on the daily and can't be doing these kind of larger posture micro techniques or wilderness techniques. But they are all as important to each other. And as you see, I've used a mix of those skills here today. So when I want to make kindling, this is when my hatchet steps up and does what it wants to do. Now, too many people try and do this hold, let go business, keep your hand here. And that's okay if you're spoon carving and you've got so much of the block here. But when you're up here, this terrifies me when I see people make kindling like so. So I use a 6 finger. And you want to, when you're making kindling, work the pizza slice down to about here. And I'll show you that now in a minute. So you're following these beautiful grains, makes life easy, and you come down and you knock it off. As you can see, I'm taking the same techniques. I've got my body off alignment with the swing of my axe. I got the stump here to help me if I do it, and I'm not trying to come off it like so. I'm still trying to go down through the wood and knock it in. Then when I get it to there, I like to turn around and split it this way. Same as if you're using a knife for batoning or making a batten of wood. As you can see, nice and easy, down it goes. It's a very quick way to process wood down into kindling. Let me see now. Have I got a nice piece? We try with a piece of birch. This birch isn't, no, there's a knot in that. Yeah, we give it a bash anyway. Sometimes we do these things because we hate ourselves. So, so I give myself some extra distance, come away, I'm off alignment, and I'm not going to get through that. It has split, but there is no point to me even trying. We give it one more swing because I'm a stubborn lad, and like I said, I hate myself. Pull it here. There we go. Then I'll turn it sideways, come down the center grain, drive that split in. We go one more time. There we go. And I've caught that knot that you would see down there. Easy game, easy life. Then I would take my kindling, and my absolute favorite technique is I get down like that. I don't use 2 knees, I'm a tall lad. And this is how I would like to do it. Knuckles out of the road. I see people pick it up and bring it down. In fact, I see a lot of people, including instructors, just put the wood on the axe, bring it up and drive it down. And too many times I've seen axes just clip off. And if it happens to me, I know it happens to you. So what I like to teach when I'm at classes is to just give it a little seat first. Just give it a few little taps. And then that way it's one solid piece. You're not going to bring it up, it's not going to bounce. Keep your knuckles out of the road. And away she goes. Again, little seat. And then I just make my kindling or my splinters that way. And I can do this for hours. I think this is very therapeutic. In fact, it's kind of like a little reward when I split down my rounds, and away she goes. Such a nice technique. Such a nice technique. And again, knowing your woods is also just as important. The reason why I like to seed it is The reason why I like to seed it is Adler is actually so easy to split. When it gets down to this size, it's almost like pulling a matchstick apart. And your more harder stuff like the birch, it's not really a problem, but best practice, safe techniques. We do it again here. This is a piece of birch. Bit of a painful piece of birch, but we can try. And that's what I mean by seeding it. A couple of taps isn't going to kill anybody. Makes all the difference. And then we split it. Same again. And this is probably my most used axe technique in the woods. There you go. Making kindling for days. So there you have it, folks. That is my Adler collection. I just done this video.
Adler.
Have all the 2 pieces of wood, you know what I mean, that I brought along. The Yankee Axe and the Super Splitter is the one I use on the daily, and I absolutely love them. And then these 2 are what I bring into the forest for my trips with the mini splitter, living in the Jeep permanently for me and either want to tip out into the woods and just need an axe that will kind of do anything we needed to do, which is mainly splitting. Such a great axe. In fact, if you're going to check out anything from the range, that's the one I recommend checking out, because I guarantee you a lot of you don't have. But I'm like you, I'm not the guy to come to for excuses, not to buy things. I know all the excuses to slide one more axe into the collection, and maybe you don't have a mini splitter in your collection, and that's something to add and have a fun play around with. So thank you for joining me and the beautiful Ida in this video. I'm going to continue splitting these on down because I enjoyed this, and it's a beautiful day here.
Can I join?
Of course you can. And now I got a friend, and that's even all the better. So until the next video, guys, information will be below. Leave comments down below with your tips and tricks. Feel free to share your axes that you like, and we'll have a nice discussion down there. As always, the comment section under these videos is super cool and very respectful, and the most useful comment I will pin to the top of the page. So until the next video, guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your support, and we'll catch you in the next one. Alder.
I just want to try the splitter one more time. The heavy axe.
There you go. Let me get out of your road. I'll turn this around that way so you can see the knot.
There.
There you go.
Ooh, I did it.
You did. You did. You want to try this?
Like, it's so heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
That is 3 kilos, so.
You barely like.
Yeah, it splits on contact. I actually love the fact that sometimes you hit it, you know what I mean? So you'll come into a stump like this and you'll be like, bang! And it won't look split. And then you'll look at it and there'll be a crack all the way down. And I think it's just sheer percussion and wedge, you know?
Yeah.
It's really cool. There, you can go with that one.
One more.
Yeah, go for it. Knock yourself out. Oof,
Oh,
nice.
No, went left.
It decided to do it. Do you want to try the felling axe? That's my, I just adore using that one. That's my racing axe, that is.
Ooh,
No, it's so bitey.